All right. Good evening to all of y'all. Well, small group here, but hopefully some are watching at home. But, they're saying it's getting pretty slick out there. When I came in about an hour ago, it was just wet. But now they're saying it's turning to ice quickly. So thank you guys for braving it. The what? Yeah. So we'll get some ice melt out there, hopefully, when we get. But yeah, so it's starting to get slick. So those of you who ventured in, thank you for coming, but be careful going home. Tonight we're going to be in 2 Kings chapter 5, and the iPad is not changing. Let me try it one more time here. Computer's not responding. Push the buttons. There you go. Whoop. Whoop. Just one more. There we go. We're in 2 Kings 5. So tonight we're going to be talking about Elisha and his visit from a man named Naaman. And so we're going to go through this. It's going to be just one chapter. It's not a real long chapter, so maybe we can get people on the road a little earlier if they want to get out there. So in 2 Kings 5, I keep trying this, hoping that it's going to all of a sudden go, oh, yeah, I'll work now. Did you do that, or did I do that? Oh, it's working. Okay. Now, Naaman was commander of the army of the king of Aram. Now, the king of Aram, the area of Aram is just like north of Israel. And so Naaman was the commander of that army. And if you remember when Elijah ran from God and he said that he was going to have people take care of things, Aram is one of those countries or one of those groups that God was going to use to help punish the people of Israel. And so Israel, because of their unfaithfulness, were subject to attacks from some of these groups, and Aram is one of them. So it says, he was a great man in the sight of his master and highly regarded, because through him the Lord had given victory to Aram. And so there's that kind of a key with it, is he is not an Israelite, but God gave him victories because God was using him as an instrument or as a tool to punish the people of Israel because of their wickedness. So Naaman was this commander who God chose to use, and he was raiding into Israel, and he was causing havoc for a lot of those towns, again, because of their disobedience. And so it says it just quit. He was a great man in the sight of his master and highly regarded. Go the other direction. Because through him the Lord had given victory to Aram. Yep. He was a valiant soldier, but he had leprosy. And leprosy, of course, is one of those things that was kind of a death sentence in most cases. And in this one, we believe it is because of how they're going to phrase it in the next few verses. Now, in Israel, if you had any sign of skin disease, and again, if you've been doing the daily reading and you read through Leviticus, you know that you so much as get a pimple, you're standing before the priests. Yes? Why? It's open. Oh, wait. Anyway, in Israel, if you had any skin disease, then you were cast out of the camp. And you had to wait till it was gone, then you had to go to the priest, and then you had to wait 7 more days, and you had to wash, and then you could come back into the camp and stuff. Not necessarily the case with Aram. They didn't always have the same customs as what Israel did. That was not like a worldwide thing that everybody had to follow the same criteria. But in Israel, any uncleanness, they had to be out of the camp. So he's obviously still around the people there and stuff, but he has been diagnosed, or they've seen leprosy, and they know that it's one of the more fatal cases or bad cases, because it says, now bands of raiders from Aram had gone out and had taken captive a young girl from Israel, and she served Naaman's wife. So there was this girl from Israel who is living in Naaman's house, serving his wife, and she says, hey, I know you've got leprosy. She said to her mistress, if only my master would see the prophet who is in Samaria. Now, of course, this prophet at this point is unnamed, but who she's talking about is Elisha. And Elisha is there, and she's saying, you know, in Israel, we have a prophet that can cure this, that can take care of this. So only if you could go down to Samaria, he would cure him of his leprosy. Man, that's all you need to do, is go down and cure him of his leprosy. And so it says, Naaman went to his master and told him what the girl from Israel had said. By all means go, the king of Aram replied. I will send a letter to the king of Israel. So Naaman left, taking with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 sets of clothing. So obviously the king of Aram is very fond of Naaman. That's a king's ransom, literally. And he says, if you can be cured, if you can be healed of this, I will pay this fortune to have you back in my service as the commander of my army, or to keep you as the commander of my army. So he gives him all this stuff, and then he also gives him a letter and says, I am sending you to Samaria to the king himself so that his prophet can come and heal you. That's a simple request. Here it is. We've got a country right down here who's got a prophet that the king can just call on, and you can be healed. So I'm going to send all this gold, all this silver, all these clothes, go down and see him. And the letter that he took to the king of Israel read, with this letter I am sending my servant Naaman to you so that you may cure him of his leprosy. Now in that letter, the thing that's kind of funny is he's addressing it to the king, and so he told the king, hey, cure him of his leprosy. And as it says, as soon as the king of Israel read the letter, he tore his robes and said, am I God that can I kill and bring back to life? And so his response is not, oh, he has sent him to me, I will rely on God and he can heal him. The king, being a wicked king, said, I can't do that. And so, he's just trying to start a war, basically. He's trying to set me up because I can't cure anybody. He didn't even think to call on God, or more specifically, call on the prophet of God who can do this, because he's just out of the king's mind. That's nothing. He doesn't even do anything with it. So it says, why does this fellow send someone to me to be cured of his leprosy? See how he is trying to pick a quarrel with me? The king of Israel is going, he just wants a fight. And I can't win. Because he sends his top guy down to me and says, heal him. I can't heal him. And when I send him back without being healed, he's going to start a war. He's going to come down. He's going to want my head. And so he's like, somebody set me up, and the king is not very happy. So it says, when Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his robes, he sent him this message. Why have you torn your robes? Have the man come to me, and he will know that there is a prophet in Israel. So Elisha's response is, don't sweat it, king. I got this. Don't you take it on. As soon as you get this guy, he comes down, he goes, just send him to me. He goes, I've got it taken care of, because God is the one who is really doing this. And when he comes to me and he sees what God can do, he will know not only is there a prophet in Israel, but there is a true God in Israel. And so Elisha's taking this as an opportunity to witness to his own king. I know, king, you can't do it. You think it's impossible, but I can do this. So let the man come to me, because we can do this with God. He will do it for us, and you will see as well that there is a God here, and that I am his prophet, and I am speaking his words. So Naaman went with his horses and chariots and stopped at the door of Elisha's house. Elisha sent a messenger to say to him, go wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan, and your flesh will be restored, and you will be cleansed. It says, but Naaman went away angry and said, I thought that he would surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God, wave his hand over the spot and cure me of this leprosy. And so here's Naaman. He goes down there. Elisha says, send him to me. So he shows up at Elisha's house, And Elisha sends his servant out and says, just tell the guy to go wash in the Jordan 7 times. It's all taken care of. God's got it all worked out. Don't worry about it. It's not me. It's God. There's the river. Go do it. So what is Naaman's response? I'm an important guy. Why didn't he come out and see me himself? Why didn't he come out and wave his hand over it and do some incantation and call on God? I wanted the show. Look at all this gold and silver and everything I brought. I want him to come out and earn this. I want him to give me the show. And that's what he's looking for, is the event. He's looking for the hype. And he says, this is what I need. This is what I want to have, is give me this hype. And so he gets indignant, really. He gets upset, and he says, heck with it. If this guy can't even come out and see me, why in the world do I want to listen to him? He didn't even come out and pray over this. He didn't wave his hands over or nothing. He just sat there in his easy chair in the house and sent his servant out and said, go wash in the river. So it goes on and it says, are not Abana and Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? And in truth, those rivers that are up around Damascus, those streams that are coming down, are naturally fed springs coming off the snow cap of Mount Hermon. And it's kind of like those nice clear brooks in Colorado that are coming off the snow melt, and you're like, oh man, these are so nice. And that's what this guy's got in his backyard, essentially. He's living there in the area of Damascus. He's got these really nice, clean rivers coming down off the mountains, and he's like, oh man, that's so good. And you want me to get in the equivalent of the Missouri River. The Jordan River is just a muddy little kind of ditch compared to those things. And he's like, yeah, it's, kind of nasty water comparatively. I want that crystal clear, nice water. If he's just going to make me wash, why didn't I do it at home? Why didn't I do it in good water? Why do I have to come down here to Israel to this yuck? And so again, he's very upset. Doesn't get his show, doesn't even get to see the prophet, doesn't like what he's told him to do. Couldn't I wash in them and be cleansed, he said? It would be so much better. He should have just sent me home and I could have gotten clean water and then got clean. But he wants me to get in this old thing? And so it goes on and it says, so he turned and went off in a rage. Done with this. He's mad. But Naaman's servants went to him and said, my father, if the prophet had told you to do some great thing, would you not have done it? How much more then when he tells you, wash and be cleansed? And that's the big thing. I think we still have that same tendency. His servants pointed out to him, if Elisha would have came out to you, waved his hands and said a little prayer, whatever, and said, I want you to go jump over this deal and through this and do this and give this money here and make this big show here, he would have gladly done it. But he says, he told you how to be clean. He told you how to be cured. Well, yeah, but it's not what I was expecting. Well, it's not always what we're expecting. He just says, go be clean. Isn't that your end goal? And when I've taught this, I've always equated it sometimes to our relationship with Christ. The gospel seems so simple sometimes when it talks about accepting Christ. And a lot of times we want it to be something more. Make me make bigger life changes. Make me jump through some hoops. Make me do some more, public type things so that I can earn what I'm getting. I want to feel like I have really contributed. And that's the problem. We can't earn God's grace and favor. We can't do it. We can't do enough good or enough sacrifice to make God go, oh, that guy, he deserves it now. We do those things and make the sacrifices, whether it be of praise or whatever, because of our relationship with God, not to earn a relationship with God. But our mentality is, I want to earn it. I want to feel like I have done something to get this. And that's where Naaman was. I want him to come out and do a little show, and then I want to do something big. I want it to be wow. I want people to go, man, that's incredible. And Elisha's saying, it's this simple. Go wash. That's all I got to do. Go to the Jordan River and wash. He could have said, go to that rain barrel and wash. whatever he was going to do. It isn't even the Jordan River that had the healing properties. It's what God asked him to do. And are you going to be obedient with the simple? And then you can do more. But people want God to call them to do the great so they feel like there's something. And that's what Naaman wanted. Let me do something majestic here. Let me stand in front of a crowd of people and proclaim this, or do this good deed, or do this thing. And then I've earned my cleansing. And Elisha's telling him, you're not earning it, dude. You're really not doing anything except being obedient. If you will listen to God, you will have your healing. But if you're not willing to listen to God, if you think you've got to prove something to God, you're not going to get healed at all. So go do it. And that's what his servants point out. He says, he told you what to do. Well, yeah, but he didn't even do any kind of a prayer over me. Doesn't matter. Well, yeah, but he didn't even come out and see me. Doesn't matter. He didn't even ask me to do it. Doesn't matter. What did the prophet say to you, even through his servant? Well, go wash. Well, let's start there. And that's kind of the way it is with, again, our relationship with Christ, is what does Scripture say? It says that we need to believe. We need to have that faith. And then we need to profess that. And we need to be obedient to that. It doesn't say, once you get everything perfect, then God will see that you're worthy of his grace. It's like, no, actually God's looking at you and saying, yeah, you're really not worthy of it, and that's what grace is. That's what that grace and forgiveness is I'm just asking you to come. He doesn't ask you to jump through the hoops. He asks you to come. And then the other things kind of fall into place. But we have to take that step. So that's what Naaman did. He went down and dipped himself in the Jordan 7 times, just like Elijah said, as the man of God had told him, and his flesh was restored and became clean like that of a young boy. Oh, wait a minute. That wasn't much of a ceremony. We didn't even have people from the town come down and watch. That's it? Yeah, that's it. That's what God called you to do. Let's be obedient to it. So it says, and then Naaman and all his attendants went back to the man of God. He stood before him and said, now I know that there is no God in all the world except in Israel. So please accept a gift from your servant. The prophet answered, as surely as the Lord lives, whom I serve, I will not accept a thing. And even though Naaman urged him, he refused. Elisha is telling him, you cannot earn this, you cannot buy it. Every other prophet, I'm sure, that Naaman has encountered in his life up in Aram has always been very willing to accept the little treasures, whether they did anything or not. Because obviously, if they weren't serving the one true God, they really didn't do anything. But they were always willing to accept that gift. They were always willing to accept that offering. And he went to him thinking, well, this prophet's going to be the same as all the other ones. So what's it going to cost me? He's got his gold and his silver and his 10 sets of clothes, and he's like, let me write you the check. What do you want? And Elisha said, I don't want any of your stuff. You can't buy it. And that spoke way more than anything that he would have said. As he said, God doesn't need to be paid off. You can't buy his love. He doesn't need to think that you've earned it by doing enough good things, and you can't buy him off and say, here, I'm going to give you enough money that you're going to all of a sudden say you need to be healed. It has nothing to do with it. It's that obedience that Naaman showed. His obedience to come to God exactly as God asked him to do. And when he did that, it was all taken care of. So it says, if you will not, said Naaman, please let me, your servant, be given as much earth as a pair of mules can carry. Isn't that a weird request? If you won't take my money, let me have some dirt. Okay. And it says, for your servant will never again make burnt offerings and sacrifices to any other god but the Lord. He says, truly, this is the one true God, and you are his prophet. So exactly like Elijah said was going to happen, let him come to me, and I will prove to him there is but one prophet, really. There's a prophet of God, and there's one God. And too bad his own king didn't realize that, but Naaman recognizes it. And he says, man, this is really the only God there is. Where Naaman gets a little off track is he is still attaching gods to countries and gods to regions. And so a very prevalent thought at that time, and you can see it in literature of that time from different cultures and stuff, is that gods controlled areas. And so when two nations went to war, it was really a battle of whose God is stronger, which one's going to preserve his people, and that's the one that's going to be victorious. And so these gods would fight against each other essentially through the people. And that's why when the Israelites came into the land, there really wasn't a big battle and the Israelites won. God drove the people out before them with hornets, with disease, with whatever he had to do. He drove the people out. And so it wasn't a matter of, I'm stronger than your God. God was saying, I am God. Your God doesn't even get a representation here. Don't even line up for war because you have no God. I'm it. And so he would drive them out before Israel even had to get into the fray a lot of times. He took care of it, and that's what he told him he would do, is I will win these victories. So Naaman is in that same boat of, I've been serving the gods of my country, and I have been fighting on their behalf, essentially, but none of them could heal me. Your God healed me, but I'm not in Israel. So let me take a chunk of Israel back with me. And if I have your God's dirt, then I can set up a little shrine and I can pray to your God. He'll hear me from his dirt. That's basically what he's saying. He can't hear me in Aram, but if I've got Israel with me, then I can pray to your God. And he'll recognize his own turf, and I can come before him. And so Elisha, probably under his breath going, wow, said, sure, if you want dirt, take dirt. He says, yeah, if that's what it's going to do for you, go back and do this. But he's like, I'm not going to serve any other gods, so let me take some dirt back. This says, but may the Lord forgive your servant for this one thing. Naaman has something that's really bothering him on his heart. And he says, when my master enters the temple of Ramon to bow down. Now, Ramon was the god of Aram. He says, and he is leaning on my arm, and I have to bow there also. When I bow down in the temple of Ramon, may the Lord forgive your servant for this. He said, I've got a problem. I will never worship the gods of Aram again. But as the commander of the king's army and as a personal friend of his, when my boss wants to go in and pray to his gods, it's my job, it's part of what I do, to take him in there. And I'm the one who steadies him as he kneels before that God, and then I bow down before it to pick my king back up. And when I do, I just want you to tell your God, I'm not bowing to that God. I'm just doing my job, but I'm not bowing to him. I'm not praying to him. I'm going to stay faithful to the one true God of this dirt, essentially. But he's saying, I'm going to recognize the one true God. But that's part of my job, is I will go into the temple of this God, but tell him, I'm not going to do it. And again, we can make it a little bit of a joke and kind of laugh about that, but you can see how they have never experienced that true worship of the one true God. And so to him, anything that he does is going to be a reflection on that. I wish that maybe we had a little more of that, that we were that concerned about pleasing God that we would not do things that would even have the appearance of worshiping another God or have the appearance of us turning to something else. But he says, just ask God to forgive me for that, because I'm not bowing to that God. I'm just doing my job, helping him up. And so it says, go in peace, Elisha said. So he knew that it was okay. But after Naaman had traveled some distance, Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, the man of God, said to himself, my master was too easy on Naaman, this Aramean, by not accepting from him what he brought. Gehazi goes, man, he brought a lot of stuff and carried it all the way down here. It would just be rude to make him carry that all the way home, especially all that gold and silver and those clothes. And I could sure make his trip a lot easier if I took some of that off his hands. Yeah, right. He was blinded by the greed. Here's an opportunity for me to make a little extra cash. So it says, as surely as the Lord lives, I will run after him and get something from him. So Gehazi hurried after Naaman. When Naaman saw him running towards him, he got down from the chariot to meet him. Is everything all right? He asked. Everything is right. All right, Gehazi answered. My master sent me to say, there's lie one, because his master didn't send him to do nothing. His master was done with this ordeal. 2 young men from the company of the prophets have just come to me from the hill country of Ephraim. Please give them a talent of silver and 2 sets of clothing. And Gehazi's thinking about himself. But give me this silver and give me these clothes, and I'll take them back to these prophets. Well, there are no prophets to take them back to. There is no arrangement. Nobody came to Elisha. Nobody was asking for this. Gehazi was looking for a way to make a quick buck, and he was cashing in on it. So he says, okay, so by all means, take 2 talents, said Naaman. He urged Gehazi to accept them, and then tied up 2 talents of silver into 2 bags with 2 sets of clothing. He's like, man, this is great. So what did Gehazi do? He nullified what Elijah had done. See, now Naaman kind of thinks that, I did earn this a little bit. I bought a little bit of this. Good. God made me put a little bit back in. So now we got a deal, okay? Where Elisha's whole point was, this is totally one-sided, and it's from God. Now, I'm going to go from preaching to meddling here for a second, but we have to be careful that we do not do that when it comes to the gospel of Jesus Christ. That we don't say, here is the road to salvation, and I'll take your ticket. Because we don't have the right to do that. We don't take tips for people to meet Jesus. We introduce people to Jesus if we possibly can, not because of us, but what the Holy Spirit is doing on their heart. And we just try to make sure that they get the best information to accept the Lord as their own personal Savior. And then it's between that person and God what they are going to give or what they're going to do. It is not our place to dictate to them that you can't be saved unless you, come on. That's not our place. And that's what Elisha was saying here, is Naaman, you owe nothing. Now, if Naaman on his own would have gone and said, man, you know what? I've encountered these people here on the side of the road, and they are poor. And you know what? I am so convicted because of what God has done for me. I am so blessed. Let me bless someone else. And if he would have freely gave out of his pocket to those people and done it in the name of the Lord or whatever, the story would have already ended. But it's because Gehazi got greedy. And he says, I can make a quick buck off what God did. I can make a quick buck off of what he appears to be doing. And like I said, we have to be careful not to do that in this day and age. That we don't take something that God is bringing forth and try to monetize it. And try to say, wow, we can make some money here. No, that's what he did. So it says he gave them to 2 of his servants, and they carried them ahead of Gehazi. When Gehazi came to the hill, he took the things from the servants and put them away in the house. He sent the men away, and they left. When he went in and stood before his master, Elijah asked him, where have you been, Gehazi? Your servant didn't go anywhere, Gehazi answered. I've been here the whole time. I was just outside. But Elisha said to him, was not my spirit with you when the man got down from his chariot to meet you? Elisha's a prophet. And he says, don't you think I know what you did? Don't you think God told me what you did? Because you see, you kind of stepped on God's toes there. And so I know that you ran to meet him. I know that you stopped him and he got down off his chariot. And I know what he gave you. And now you've got another lie because you're lying to me about what you have done. So this is just compounding, lie after lie. And he says, is this the time to take money or to accept clothes? Or olive groves and vineyards, or flocks and herds, or male and female slaves? Naaman's leprosy will cling to you and your descendants forever. Then Gehazi went from Elisha's presence, and his skin was leprous. It had become as white as snow. So God said, oh, you want the things that Naaman has? You can have everything that he brought with him, including the leprosy. I'm going to give you the bonus round. You keep your couple talents of silver there, whatever. You keep those clothes because you know what? You got everything that he came. Because Naaman learned to do something out of obedience and faith. Gehazi took that same obedience and twisted it for his own gain. And so God punished him for that. And so like I said, we just have to be careful that when we're looking at the blessings that God brings, that we're not trying to do it for our gain. When God says, this is what I want, or this is what needs to be done, then we need to let God move. And that's what Elisha did. Elisha didn't even get out of his chair the first time. He said, hey, Gehazi, go out and tell him to go wash in the stream. I'm busy. I'm drinking my cocoa. Whatever. He's like, have him go do that. And Elisha was not going to do anything that drew the attention to himself. He said, it's not about me. The only thing I'm doing here is I'm relaying the word of God. And I want Naaman to see that. The next thing is I want him to realize that it's not about the show, it's about his obedience. So if he goes and washes, he's going to have that cleansing. And then the third thing that he wanted to show him was, you can't buy this. You can't earn it, you can't buy it. So take it and go. You owe me nothing. Take your allegiance to God. Take your blessing from God and recognize God as that giver of good things. And so he was on his way back to proclaim how great God was. And then Gehazi came and said, hey, wait, I can make this something that I can take a little profit from. Other kind of profit. And he wanted a little bit of that cash, so he did. And it's just sad to see the way he turned that around. But this is kind of the main thrust of what we get from Elisha. There's a lot more stories of Elisha. But next week, we're actually going to be moving on to Jonah. And so we're going to jump ahead. So I encourage you, if you're not doing the daily reading, if you are doing the daily reading, you'll get to Elisha pretty soon. If you're not, if you want to look that up area around 2 Kings right in there, Elijah into Elisha, and see all the things that Elisha did as a prophet. And even at the end of his life, or after his life had ended on this earth, he was still performing miracles. If you want to see that, look it up. But you know, he was a man that, again, fully trusted in God, and like Elijah, he let God do the miraculous things, and he didn't take the glory on for himself. He just passed it on and said, no, it's God that's doing all this. And so Elisha was a great man and a great prophet. But all right. Well, that concludes tonight's lesson. Like I said, next week, I will be out of town, but we have a special guest lecturer next week, a special teacher. So we will still be having Wednesday night. So don't get freaked out by that. Don't think, oh, it's all been canceled. Nope. Wednesday night will happen, and we're going to have a guest teacher. So join us again next Wednesday. Hope to see you Sunday in the meantime, but people at home, thank you. Goodbye.